Right, hello, welcome everyone. My name is Module. Today I'm going to be showing you how I normally go about making some kind of groovy, unique drums, and I'm going to show you by talking about my EP that came out the other week, because the 4 tunes on this EP all have kind of similar styles of drums, if you like. They were kind of made using similar processes and stuff, so what I'm going to do is just quickly run you through the drops on these tunes. So this is the first one from the EP, Classical Music.
Classical piece of music.
So that's that one, and then the second track is Hypnotic. So that one was Hypnotic, and this one is called Bounce. And then this one is called Orbits.
Orbits.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, they all kind of have similar drums across the 4 tunes. I use very similar processes on them all, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about how I achieved the kind of sounds that I did on these tunes. So let's dive into another project, and I will see you in there in a second. Right, so we're back in an empty project now, and essentially I'm just going to make some drums from scratch using a very similar process to what I used on the EP, and I'm going to talk you through kind of what I do to get that kind of sound. So the most important thing when it comes to making good drums or making any kind of sound that is using the best quality samples you can, whether that be a sample that you made yourself or a sample that you've got from someone else. Just make sure they're good quality and pick a sample that sounds as close as possible to how you want it to sound already. If you're going to make some heavy jump up punchy drums, start with some heavy jump up punchy drums. Don't start with some weak drums and then try to make them into something they're not, because you'll just quite often will over process them and turn them into a muddy mess. I mean, I can't comment, some of my tunes are a bit muddy. I'm more of a sound design guy than a mixing guy, but yeah. So the samples that I used on this EP were these basically samples that I've made myself. So I got this kick. It's very quiet, and it says that it's Mills because it's when I used to. I made these back when I produced under the name Mills, but yeah, just a fairly standard kick that I've made myself. And these kicks, there's no point in me telling you how to make these kind of kicks because you might want a different kind of kick. But this kick very much fitted the kind of vibe that I had going on with the EP. Like, it's quite sort of, I don't know if distorted is the word, maybe distorted. It's very short, it's a really short kick. If you see there, it's virtually only half of, I don't even know, what's this split? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I don't know, it's like a 1/8 of a bar or something. I don't know my music terminology. But yeah, these are the kicks. So I'm just going to place that down in a normal 2-step kick pattern. Now the snare that I used, again, was one that I made myself, which is also quite quiet. I exported these at like minus 18 decibels, but if you just normalise them, they go back to full volume. And yeah, this is the snare. Pretty simple kind of samples. I believe I made them all in phase plant. So essentially what I did in phase plant was I had a few different generators. One was a sample generator. I loaded a similar kind of sounding transient to this, just like a clicky transient, and then I kind of layered it with like some white noise and then like a lower down sine wave, a couple octaves down. And a similar process on that. You'll hear there's quite a lot of reverb on that snare actually. Quite a lot indeed, but you know, when you shorten it down to this long, you don't have it. You can kind of hear it there, but I liked it like that. So this is pretty much the basic pattern that I used on the EP. It's a standard sort of sound that you hear a lot in drum and bass in general. Now, when it comes to your samples, you need to listen out for what you're picking as well. Like these samples, I know for a fact that when I made them, I processed them quite a bit, so they don't necessarily need much processing afterwards. They can kind of just go down like that in a tune, and they'll kind of fit with the rest of the tune. Maybe a bit of EQ on them to clean them up, but yeah, just listen out for your samples when you're picking them. Are they already quite processed, you know, compressed, distorted? Are they really clean, sort of unprocessed samples? Because you'll need to know this for later on in the line when you're sort of continuing with the rest of the tune. But, you know, this sounds rubbish. The thing that really makes your drums stand out is having some good quality percussion. I'm not the best at creating my own, if I'm being honest. I do have a serum patch actually where I did make my own hi-hats. Let's give that a go, because I believe I used them on this EP at some point. Yes, it's literally just a white noise with this volume shaper on it. It's also on Oscillator A, but that's turned off. A little bit of delay in EQ. The delay just kind of adds a bit of width. So if I get one of them stuck in, it doesn't necessarily matter what note. Can't really hear that one, to be honest. It might have been the other one. Oh yeah, that's the one that I liked. So I think it's the same concept, to be honest. Although it says it's a Cashmere sample, so I believe I possibly loaded up a hi-hat or a white noise sample into the noise sampler and then just use that. But yeah, I'm gonna just use an audio hi-hat though, so I'm gonna find a nice hi-hat that I think works with these drums. So let's just have a little look through for some. Well, that's not a hi-hat. That is though, and I kind of like that. So let's take a listen to that. Okay, yeah, that works. That's a really nice hi-hat. Works with the rest of the tune. So what can we do to upgrade this loop? At the minute, it's very boring. So a couple of techniques that I used on my EP, just about making the sort of drums a bit more live and human-esque, is to have every second kick be a slightly different volume, slightly different shape, possibly as well, maybe off the grid. I tend to keep my kicks on grid, but doing this just by bringing the volume of that second kick down, it's not hugely noticeable, but it adds a variation and it's like an emphasis on the first kick. Okay, and we could do the same or similar kind of things with the hi-hat as well. If we look at that sample, I don't know if you can see it, but it's just ever so slightly off grid already, which kind of works in our favour, but I want to move it a bit off more grid. So in FL, if you hold down Alt, you can move it off the grid. So I'm just holding Alt to do that. I'm just going to move it off the grid a little bit, because this adds what's called humanization. It adds a realness, certain realness to the drums. So already that's sounding just slightly better than what it was before, just from those two little changes. But you know, it's still quite boring. There's only one hi-hat. So let's take a look for some more. I quite like that one. It's almost like a pitch down version of the original one. and I think that will add a good variation. So if we have, maybe if we have two of these, then one of the other one, and then another one. I quite like that actually. But again, let's just try mess around with the placement of these, so that we don't have sort of very static drums. Okay, I think I'm liking how that's sounding so far, so let's duplicate this across a couple of times. And see what else we can add in there. So another thing that you might have heard a lot of on the EP is things like offbeat drums, or syncopation it's called. So having a sample where you wouldn't expect there to be a sample. So at the minute it's very consistent, but there's room to add more. And my favourite way to do that, which I used on literally every track on the EP and probably will use it on every track ever, is to use a hi-hat, an open hi-hat this time though, so these are all closed hi-hats, but we want to use an open one. So let's try to find one that works. I quite like that. Obviously it's a long sample, doesn't have to be. Let's just shorten it down and shape it to our own preferences, because this is music and we can do what we want. So let's just take a listen to it for now. It might sound a bit out of place, but we'll worry about that in a second. Okay, yeah, I really like the way that sounds. It's a little bit loud, so we'll turn it down, do a little bit of shaping on there. It's got quite a harsh transient, maybe just tame that ever so slightly, just tame the end bit as well, maybe shorten it, just have it off grid ever so slightly. If I bring the volume down a bit as well. Yeah, I like that. But it's almost like that open hi-hat here becomes like a call and it's looking for a response almost. At the minute, the natural sort of response that I feel like it needs is to have a response from the kick drum. So I want to do a double kick, possibly? Something like this. Bit too much, but some sort of alternate kind of response to the first section. So okay, let's keep that snare in. There we go. So if I was to put another kick there, and then make this a nice even loop. See that would be great for like a close-in phrase. So you could maybe, if you used to extend this loop out to 9 bars. If I can select that hi-hat, there we go. Put it all the way over in 9, or as the, there we go. So you kind of have 3 little rounds of the original loop. To be honest, it's just calling for a little bit here, maybe. Yeah. So you can hear how these two are now slightly different. So we've got like a bunch of kicks, and then even more kicks here. What have I done differently? I've done something differently there. Oh, okay, so I've taken out the kick that was here. And I've left it in here. And that creates a nice little variation. And again, because these are sort of varying different kicks, let's just kind of mess with the volumes a little bit, mess with the shape. You know, we don't want them all to be identical. If this was a real drummer would not be hitting all these kicks at the exact same time, at the exact same velocity, you know, with the exact same sort of length and stuff. So it's important to just kind of keep a bit of variation in the mix, you know. That's all good. Okay, so we're starting to get a slightly better loop. Not too bad, but you know, there's always more that we can do to it. It's not, you know, it's very slow. So one of the things that I like to do, I use this in the tune Bounce. Bounce is one of these things is to basically layer it with a break that you like. So just find a break and layer it up. I'm going to have a little listen through some. See, I quite like that. It's quite tight, pretty minimal, but it's also really rolling. I think it could work. So if we just sync it up and just have a little play for now. Do you see what I mean? That break has just taken that to a whole nother level. Because these drum samples, I know because I made them myself, they're quite synthetic. I don't think there's any realness to them. I'm pretty sure they're just sort of fake drums, synth ones. So to add a live break like that, that goes stupidly hard. You know, I'm gonna have to save these drums, make another tune with them. So yeah, that's a slight improvement. Obviously though, just bear in mind when you're layering up samples like this, if we just quickly send it to a channel, so that's on 13, and if I send the kick to 12, and let's just take a look at them both through analyzers. So the main kick drum, here, the first one, obviously a lot of low end, as a kick should do. But then this is going to have a bit of low end as well because it's a live recorded break, and it will have some. The problem with that, I mean, to be fair, it's not got a massive low end, but the problem with that is when you're then where is it? Is it this one? If I just name this one kick quickly. Oh, okay, so it's Pro Q brackets 3. Sorry, I'm just trying to show the kick on here at the same time as the break. Here we go. You can see the red one being the kick, how much the two are clashing. If it was me personally, I'd normally just opt for a cut. Just stick it in linear phase and just have a little cut. Just get rid of any of that low end, because I don't know, some people don't like doing it that way, some people do. I do. Okay, yeah, that works really well. So what else can we do? Another thing to do, if I just send this to the percussion channel, a good thing to do is to sidechain your kick to your percussion. So if I get these hi-hats into the percussion section as well, so we can do that pretty simply just by getting a compressor onto the channel where all of our hi-hats are sent to, sidechaining it to the kick and set it to external mode. Where's it gone? Give me my compressor back. Oh, there it is. Yeah, so and that just adds a little bit of extra groove to it, so that every time your kick is hitting, your hi-hats are just ducking ever so slightly. Like if you look at that, the threshold was, you know, really low. And I've also got that break going into that as well, so it just sounds a bit more cohesive with the whole thing, so it's not just kind of out of place. I do also tend to as well sidechain the snare to it, so you've got both the kick and the snare be a sidechain to the percussion. Call me crazy, whatever. I do it on every tune, so you're not going to stop me from doing it, but okay, I'm happy with that so far. So yeah, sidechaining the kick and the snare to any sort of break or hi-hats that you've got just adds a bit of extra groove. And I want to talk a little bit as well about placement in the stereo field of drums. So a kick, now this isn't a set in stone rule that you have to follow every time, but for me, I like my kicks to be mono, straight down the middle. They're a source of low end, so to have them, you know, in the middle amongst everything else is kind of the way that I like to have them, because you can spread things out a little bit better that way. And so I'm going to do the same but opposite on the tops. So I'm going to use a plugin called Multipass. Here it is, which basically just lets you sort of, it's like a multi-band thing. So I'm just going to set the high band to about 3.5K, and I'm just going to put some reverb on there. I've no idea why this is so small today. It's never normally this small. And yeah, we're just going to have a listen. Yeah, so the purpose of that was just to add a little bit of width to the top end, because if you've got your kick straight down the centre and your tops kind of spread out slightly, and you know the snare, well the snare's already got some reverb on it that I added, so it's quite a wide snare I'd say, so I wouldn't really worry about the stereo width on that myself. But you know, if your snare was a really mono snare, consider just adding a bit of reverb on it, possibly to see how it kind of ties together with the rest of the drums that are going on. Might not need it, might need it, just give it a go. So now we've got to think about what else this needs. This break itself isn't that top heavy. There's a little bit of high end going on, but there's not much. And so the only high end we've really got is, you know, not much. Also as well, you will have to forgive me, I'm mixing on my headphones, which I don't normally do unless I've got Sound ID reference turned on, this plugin, which basically has an EQ curve to adjust for my headphone profile. However, if I have that on whilst I'm making a tutorial, it sounds rubbish for you guys. So yeah, just forgive me if the mixing on this isn't perfect. It might be a bit sort of top end heavy because these headphones are a bit lacking But they're a bit top end heavy, so you kind of compensate and overcompensate in some areas. Anyway, yeah, because I don't think it has much top end anyway, I want to add a bit more. There's room for kind of some cymbals or some shakers or some hi-hats in there. Just try and make the most use of what's available to you with drums, because drums aren't just kick and snare. Drums are sort of open hi-hats, closed hi-hats, crashes, cymbals, rides, congos, toms, you know. There's a whole world of sort of percussion instruments out there that you can use to sort of really spice up your beats. Me personally, I think this needs a shaker. I'm going to go for this one sample I always use called Onion Shaker. As you can see here, I've used it tons and tons of times. I've used it on every single tune that was on that EP. I use it on so many tunes. It's a sample from Faction. It's just an incredible sample. The shakers on it are beautiful. So good. So we're going to get them sent to the channel as the sort of top end channel as well, just so that they get sidechained. Nice. That's really cool. What I also want to do as well, just to add more variation, so with this open hi-hat, I want to make the second one slightly different from the first, so I'm going to make it unique as a sample. I'm just going to pitch it down 100 cents and see how that sounds. I don't really like it. Low key, I kind of want to put it here, maybe get rid of the second kick. This is the difficult part about drums. It's a lot of figuring out what works and what doesn't. It's a lot of just placement. I like that actually, because that's really like alternating. And to take it even further, let's pan this one to the left a little bit. Let's pan this one to the right a little bit. Because it's just a variation, it's a way of counting and continuing along. If you hear that one here, then you hear this one here, switching all the time. Which adds a bit of excitement, you know. Okay, yeah, nice. And with regards to the break as well, it's up to you whether you want to add the kicks back in to where you've added extra kicks. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Let's just have a look anyway, see if it needs it. Just pop them in there. That's already got one, so that's fine. Yeah, I think in this case I'm going to add the extra kicks in to where they belong on the break, because it just kind of sounds a bit more cohesive. So that's fine. Okay. One thing I do notice about that hi-hat as well is I think there's quite a lot of low end in that. Yeah, so, I mean, there's not loads. You don't want to take out too much because it will actually then lose its character. Just wanted to kind of cut around that 200, 300 muddiness mark because it doesn't need that. But yeah, so I still think there's room for more top end on this. And what I also want to do as well, I want to do the same on the little hi-hats to what I did to the big ones. So let's undo that. So yeah, these little closed hi-hats I'm going to make unique. And I'm also going to adjust the velocity down or even up on that one. Actually no, I'm going to have that one down because it's on the snare. I'm going to have this one up. because it's on the kick. But yeah, because I've made it unique to the first one. So again, just going to pan it right a bit, and I'm going to pan the first one left. And then copy that there, and then copy that across. So now we've got more panning variation on the hi-hats as well. Okay, nice. I kind of want to get like a really, really high-end ride or cymbal kind of thing in there. That one's straight away. I like that. Because these sound so good when they're sidechained. If you can kind of get the sidechain right on these. I'm pretty sure I've got a sample in here somewhere as well from Faction also with pre-sidechained ones. Here we go. Yeah. Oh, it's from Rizzle. That. Love that sample. That's obviously very heavily sidechained. It won't sound like this with how I've got it set up. So if I just put these rides in, you can hear, because I've got the sidechain quite subtle. Yeah, you could hear it when I exaggerated it, obviously, but we don't always want that. However, let's try it with the sidechained ones in there as well. Can't tell if I like it or not, you know. If we maybe cut it up a bit so it's a bit more consistent, like. Yeah, I'm liking that, you know. Really liking that. But yes, that's kind of how you go from taking your drum loop from just a boring to something a bit more lively. But without that, because that sounds rubbish. I mean, from here, this would purely depend on the type of samples you'd use, but potentially you'd maybe want to do a bit of compression or distortion or just something on the drum bus to kind of glue it all together. Like I said, with these samples, they're all pretty processed, so I wouldn't say it needs anything, but let's just have a look anyway, maybe add some saturation, because they are pretty distorted already, but it's good to try these things. If you don't try, you don't know. Okay, that's brilliant. That saturation works a treat, because saturation in itself is essentially like a form of soft clipping or clipping, limiting, whatever. So if you use it really subtly, you can just shave off those high transient peaks. So you see, without that satin, we're clipping way above zero, and then with it, you're now at minus zero, and yet it sounds virtually just as loud. So that's how you can kind of give yourself a bit more headroom. So yeah, I'm going to keep that saturation on. Obviously it's very subtle. It's, if you wanted extreme saturation, go for it, but that would be dependent on your samples. Potentially a bit of compression. Yeah, so that compression's very subtle again, just like the saturation. I don't think it necessarily needs it. It's just kind of gluing everything together a little bit. I mean, look, barely shaving off sort of 1.5 dB. The other thing that I was doing is just kind of smashing it and then bringing the mix level down. I actually think that sounds more better in my opinion. And then obviously your EQ, well, you just do that to taste. There's no point in me telling you how to EQ because everyone's room, everyone's samples are all different. I don't really believe in EQ tutorials. Just learn, use your ears. And as well, potentially a bit of soft clipping just to bring it up to 0. And then just that to bring a bit of attack back into it, because sometimes when you compress and clip you kind of lose the transients. So just bring a bit of attack in with a transient shaper. And yeah, that's how you take it from slightly weak to slightly less weak. But yeah, I think I'll leave it at that for this drum tutorial. I think I've covered kind of every sort of technique I use on the EP. The main kind of takeaway points are don't keep your drums so robotic, have lots of different varying sort of tails and volumes. I mean, yeah, you're making your compressor work harder because the dynamics aren't all the same, but sod it. I probably could have listened to my own advice for the snare. They're all of the same. So maybe if I just do like every other snare or something, just have it slightly more tailed off or something, I don't know. Okay, maybe not that much, that's pretty drastic. And again, that just adds another little variation. Because you might not be able to hear it, it's really subtle, but there's just slightly less reverb tail on that second one, and you know, altogether you can actually really hear that in the mix. I think that's a really good little point actually. I'm glad I mentioned that because that's it's kind of added a nice little variation to it. Speaking of variation, let's just change that one to that. There you go. I think I liked it actually, how it was with that. There we go. But yeah, so takeaway message is to keep lots of different variations with your panning, your positioning, your placement of things on the grid. Don't keep everything so static. Mess around with different volumes. And then obviously think about your placement in the stereo field. Are things down the middle? Are they really wide? And think about adding a break onto there as well. So can you layer it up with a break potentially to improve the drums? And sort of quick shakers, and little sidechained things. Just overall, just try build them out. Like if you're going for minimal drums, obviously, then do that. But you can still apply these techniques to that because a lot of minimal is so minimal that you have to focus on the groove and stuff like that to really make it work. But yeah, this in turn will also help you get a cleaner mix because you haven't got so many transients hitting at the same time and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm going to leave these drums at that and probably go make a tune with them, to be honest, because they're well good. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, if you learned something, please do leave a like, consider subscribing, and go stream the 4 tunes that you heard from my classical music EP. The link is in the description. They are out on all platforms to stream and buy. So any support on that would be greatly appreciated. I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.